Some viewers may find this content disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. Who dares awaken me from my slumber? JJ Messenger. Yes, this is always good to see you venturing back into the Fox Den for another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on Starfox Radio. Yet please allow me to feed. Much better now that that has been taken care of and I feel completely revamped and the shackles have been removed. It is now time for the JJ Messenger and myself to take a walk into the darkness. My creatures of the night, yes, welcome back once again to another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on Star Fox Radio. Guess who stopped in to the Fox Den? Oh, it should be expected though. He's here all the time. We have JJ Messenger. How you doing tonight, man?
Hey, doing good, Ken. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. It's always good to sit down and try to figure out what the heck's going on in Europe in the Northeast, such as myself. So it's pretty interesting up here. What have you been up to?
Oh, I've been doing a lot of the Sasquatch research. They've been around. They've been leaving footprints. One footprint was a good 16 inches long.
Jeez, on crow. That's some pretty interesting stuff right there for sure. You definitely don't want to get stomped on by that, eh?
No way.
So, being up in the Northeast, I was thinking tonight we could maybe touch on this area called Cold Hollow, Vermont. It's had some activity for quite a long time, and it's actually near the Bennington Triangle, which is an area where a ton of people have gone missing throughout history, too. And they'd actually even seen strange hominoid, hairy creatures in the Bennington Triangle. But Cold Hollow, Vermont is an area that is, I would not necessarily say extremely isolated, but it takes about, this woman said, in the town that she lives in, which is one of the only towns in quote unquote Cold Hollow, it takes her about 45 minutes to an hour, sometimes an hour and a half to get anywhere that has nightlife because there they have a little pizza shop and such. So it's a pretty small community, but people's pets and also rumored some people had just mysteriously vanished and, the strange howls and such. And, the normal things that go along with the whole Dogman sightings have been occurring pretty heavily documented since I would say maybe around 2015-ish, give or take, but it's been going on for quite a long time. And I was wondering if you had ever even heard of that area.
Not specifically. Is it like situated deep in the Green Mountains in that territory?
It's near Canada, but have you heard of Waterville, Vermont and Fletcher,
Oh,
Vermont?
okay, way north, way at the northern edge of Vermont. Okay.
Yes, so it's right up in that spot and it's clustered all the way up into Canada, into Belvedere, Bakersfield, Honestburg, Montgomery, and then Richford. So it's a really densely forested area and mountain range, which we all know. Well, what usually goes on in mountain ranges, you got the cave systems and people go missing. So the Cold Hollow Mountains are part of the largest intact temperate forest left in the world, stating just like I
Wow.
said, so it's an extremely dense area. The northern forest stretches across the northeastern United States and southeastern Canadian border. From Massachusetts to Quebec, the northern forest encompasses nearly 82 million acres and is inhabited by 470 vertebrate species, 2,700 plant species, and 5 million people.
Amazing. When it comes to cryptids in general, people think of the Pacific Northwest, but the northern New England area, very wild, very untamed.
Yes, like you said, everyone seems to, always equate things and unknown animal species and missing people to the Pacific Northwest. But correct me if I'm wrong, I do believe Maine has the most trees per capita in the United States. And if it isn't one, then it's definitely two. But I do believe it's the most forested area. And people just don't realize, like I said, there's still a ton of forest out there. And when I'm looking at this map where all the green is in this area where, this forest also dishes off and connects up into Maine and New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, it's, yeah, massively easy for something to hide in there. I mean, it's a regional crossroad, so the ridge lines and valleys in the Cold Hollow Mountains, they provide like crucial shelter and habitat for wildlife all the way up through the Northeast. Get away from, hot weather, cold weather, etc., hiding predators. So it goes all the way from, it starts in New York and goes up to Nova Scotia. So, I mean, there's just a ton of animals that live in there that we know about, like black bears, moose, bobcat, fishers, all these animals that we've documented are using these areas to get along.
Oh, yeah. Any place with a heavy black bear population, you have an environment ripe for the cryptids. Definitely.
Yes, because anything that is able to function more or less along those lines is going to have pretty much similar behavior unless it's paranormal based or extraterrestrial, which is, people do within the North American Dogman Project dive into that, but that's not something that I spend a lot of my time on being educated enough. So I try to look at more of the physical, such as you and I.
Oh, yeah, definitely. When you think paranormal and supernatural, that could be in the middle of New York City, you know, in the middle of New Jersey. You don't have to be in the wilds.
I know, right? I mean, I'm from Boston and Maine back and forth throughout my existence. And yeah, I've definitely seen some gnarly things where I grew up in South Boston, that's for sure. So, yeah, I mean, you're like, wow, is that not the cryptid right there? So, but all right, so we're going to start trying to be in order here date wise, which my book should be. I'm just going to read the date because, as stated, we're in the Cold Hollow range. So this one's in the 1800s. You have local farmers that begin finding mutilated livestock and farm dogs around their properties. Strange howls were also reported, and unknown canine footprints. Well, seems to be pretty much what we all tend to have filter in for encounters, huh? And one of the farmers' wives, Eliza Johnson, was out working during the afternoon when she saw an enormous, human like dog creature glaring at her from the nearby brush before it snarled and ducked down. Around this time, other local villagers also began reporting seeing the same creature and losing their pets and livestock.
Wow. Yeah, livestock, pets, first victims, unfortunately for them.
Usually seems to be, and then unfortunately it escalates, right?
Yeah, and then it gets to a real problem when people go missing. Just a horrible situation.
Yeah, it was just what we're trying to shed some light on here. I definitely agree. All right, now we got 1936. A small group of loggers were out deep within the forest when suddenly they feel an uneasy feeling as everything around them begins to unfold into silence. To everyone's dismay, they see an enormous canine like creature watching them casually before standing up on two legs, growling at them menacingly, and then quickly ducking back into the deep brush.
Wow. You know, something that's curious to me, they generally don't leap and attack. They will growl and snarl and be intimidating, but then they retreat.
Yeah, and I think just like with any other predator, more or less, they are trying to outweigh the cost as to what's going to occur. So, I mean, kind of to look at it as like a T Rex going up against a Triceratops. So, I mean, you have this Dogman seeing somebody with a loaded rifle. So, sure, it could probably still dispose of that individual. But what happens if it gets filled up with some lead? Who knows afterwards? Does it go off and miraculously heal? I mean, hyenas, for example, which are documented animals, guess what? They have been known to survive from some of the most gruesome injuries that other animals have not. And they also in the wild can live up to 30 years. Okay, this is in Africa. And they are pretty much immune to any sort of bacteria and diseases. And anthrax and rabies has no effect on them because of the acidity level in their stomach. Okay, so could it be, if it's something like that, then there's a high probability if the caliber of the rifle isn't extremely heavy, then this animal is going to survive, but it still has to deal with all the pain, somehow get the bullet out, or does it just heal in there? So I think when it stands up and growls, more or less, I think it's trying to figure out the cost of what's occurring. Whereas if it just was going to snag you, I don't think it'd even enunciate its location.
Its ability to assess a situation, assess the possibility of success with an attack, that indicates a high level of intelligence. You know, these are not dumb creatures by any means.
Definitely not. And I think in general, people underestimate the intellectual aspects of animals because, I mean, there is documented cases in the fossil record of T Rexes having wounds where the horns of Triceratops fit in, and there's wounds on the Triceratops where their teeth fit into the T Rex. But let's be logical here. Don't you think that T Rex would have most likely been much more successful and easier on its body taking on the iguanodons in the area? I mean, I'm sure that it's not afraid necessarily, but that, in my opinion, probably was more of a desperation move or a territorial dispute because the risk reward in taking on a Triceratops is pretty brutal because, I mean, in the skull that they did find, it looked like it went right through its eyeball.
Oh, oh, that's vicious. Yeah, the risk reward factor. There is a debate, I know, with paleontologists whether T Rex is more predator or scavenger. And most of them decide on both, actually. But as a predator, it would go after the easiest prey. You know, just as lions go after the injured and the slow.
Which would 100% make sense. And yeah, I'm such a nerd and geeker. I love dinosaurs. When I was younger, I used to be able to hammer out the names and all this stuff at such a young age. But I would tend to agree with that, of course. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure there are certain predators that have to have live food, but great white sharks and other sharks have no problem eating something that's already deceased, even though they are also hunters. Same thing with hyenas. A lot of people don't realize hyenas have the highest success ratio in Africa when it comes to hunting. Okay, everyone calls the lion the king of Africa. No, it's really not. The hyena pride is 100 plus sometimes, and yeah, they are definitely they're like 90% successful. But again, also there are subspecies of the spotted hyena, like the striped hyena and things that are more almost fully scavengers, but yet same thing with a spotted hyena. It's a hunter, but it's going to also, capitalize on something that's already deceased. Again, correct me if I'm wrong. Don't bears do that same thing? And wouldn't wolves? I mean, both of those hunt as well. But if a wolf came across a deceased deer on the road, is it not going to take it and drag it away? I know polar bears and such
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's like when you're a scavenger, you may discriminate, but yeah, you're going to capitalize on any food opportunity. And black bears, they're not as aggressive as you would think they would be. I mean, I've seen a domestic cat scare a black bear up a tree, which was a very comical sight, actually. Uh, but yeah, black bears, when cornered or when starving, aggressive, ill, they will come as a predator, but they behave more as scavengers.
Yeah, see, exactly. And they're also omnivorous as well, which means they're not just fully flesh based, whereas like cougars and wolves just eat flesh. So,
Yeah, yeah, and that's the way I think the Sasquatch are. I think they're omnivorous. They go after bark, perhaps roots, herbal food sources. They're but that doesn't mean they won't partake in deer meat. You know.
well, exactly. It's funny you said that because before we get on to the next encounter here, Ernie and I were actually just talking about that on one of my latest episodes, where that if you look at something that's completely full meat based, like wolves, all right, they're always traveling, okay? They're always on the move, cougars to find meat. But when you have something like a bear, bears tend to squat up in the same area, spend a lot of time in area based off of seasons and such. So same thing with the Sasquatch. Of course, they're going to be able to have berries, fish, and roots and natural vegetables and such that are growing. They're going to post up in that area as long as possible. Where something that is just wanting flesh, like a dogman, is always going to be on the move, trying to either stalk something or find easy areas for food sources. So it's going to, in my opinion, have a not that Sasquatch wouldn't have a larger or large range where they go, but I think it's seasonal based, whereas a dog man probably just roams all the time.
Yeah, Dogman would probably be more associated to what we consider canine behavior. And yeah, they roam and they hunt in packs.
Exactly. 1945 here. So for the past 5 years, people from the area begin to just disappear on the regular. Locals, again, start reporting hearing eerie howls and human like screams in the darkness of the night. Some even claiming to see this unholy beast that looked to be something like a wolf like creature.
Oh man. I wonder if their eyes were illuminated.
A lot of people don't realize, just in general, that animals' eyes will collect illumination even in the day, meaning if the light hits something right, and then, yeah, at night, predators have eye shine, and also baboons, the yellow baboon species, has night vision because they have to deal with leopards. But the other day, there's a neighbor's dog that I love her. She's awesome. So I always go over and feed her some of the dinner I have and such because I don't know, I eat super good, but she loves what I eat. Either way. So the sun caught her eyes just right, and I happened to not see her out there because she doesn't bark. She just waits for me. But then I saw some eye shine. I looked over and it was her. So you see what I'm saying? So I think every animal has eye shine, especially just, I mean, look at deer in the night, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm an old timer. I was around back in this as a kid in the 60s and the 70s. And all the cameras at the time had these horrible square flash bulbs, that were extremely abusive to children as they took pictures. And there's numerous photos of all us kids with the beat red eyes
That's so
from
cool,
that.
though. I always
Yeah,
thought that was
yeah.
so sick. Yeah.
A bunch of vampire children in all the
Yes, I
photographs.
always was like, man, those that look so cool, dude. But
Those were
that
the
is
days.
awesome. That is so funny. All right, now we're heading into 1945. 74-year-old Mitty Rivers is guiding a group of 4 hunters deep in the wilderness. 74, and this dude's still trucking around like that. Dang. As they are heading back to base camp, Rivers is suddenly taken by someone or something and is never found. Well, that would make a lot of sense.
Hmm. Wow. Yeah, God bless the old guy for being out there and doing what he did, but yeah,
Didn't see that coming, huh?
no.
Jeez. Now we go to December 1st, 1946. 18-year-old Paula Jean Weldon has just finished her shift at work and is headed home to change her clothes before going for an afternoon jog through Boyles Brook Valley. She is last seen by a group of hikers who briefly spoke to her before parting ways after Fay Fuller Camp. Weldon is never seen or heard from again.
Ah, a young woman. Oh, that's horrible.
October 1950, 53-year-old Frida Langer is out hunting near her isolated campsite when she suddenly disappears. It isn't until a year later that her skeletal remains were found all the way up in North Adams, Massachusetts, in a densely forested area.
Oh, wow. Near Mount Greylock. Okay. I've been to Mount Greylock quite often.
Boom, look at that. You just were able to pull that right out. Yeah, it's another mountain range area.
Yep.
1951, National Geographic's writes and publishes an article about quote unquote werewolf sightings occurring all over Vermont, mostly near Groton Pond and the Cold Hollow Mountains.
Oh, I'm going to be looking up this area once the interview's done. I want to know this area. Man.
Yeah, no, definitely. You'll have to keep me posted on what you discover. 1955, a family is out deep in the forest camping near Lake Willoughby. As the family is out hiking, they suddenly see an enormous canine-like creature sniff the air before standing up on two legs, aggressively looking at them, and then disappearing back into the forest and out of sight.
Wow. Once again, assessing the situation.
Exactly, and then just disappears like right out there. 2003, locals begin reporting seeing a strange, black, werewolf like creature with glowing red eyes lurking around their property and trying to gain access to their homes late at night. It is said that these strange creatures were even trying the doors and windows as if to seem to know if they were locked or unlocked, and even went as far as trying to lure the members of the household outside to their demise.
Oh, man. Now, I've heard of Sasquatch activity rattling doorknobs, and it's actually happened to me on a few occasions at my home. If I ever saw like a dogman like entity, I think I would probably just soil myself on the spot. I
Right.
mean, man, that you don't fool with these things.
No, seriously, it's just imagine that. On a funny note, I'm just so being sarcastic. As I open the door, I would just put in my rainbow teeth, my vampire fangs, and be like, "Yeah." No,
Time
that would happen.
time for a movie encounter. Yeah.
Right? It wouldn't work very well for me, but I
Vampire
just
versus Dogman.
right. I just figured I would add some humor to the darkness that we're diving into right now, right? All right, so now we hit 2004. A group of friends are awoken one night by strange howling coming from outside their tents. Cautiously searching the surrounding area, they spot an enormous bipedal human-like creature with pointy ears and glowing eyes glaring at them before quickly turning around and disappearing into the forest.
I would wonder once you encounter them, I wonder if that creates. Now, in the Sasquatch community, they call it tagging. I wonder if that would create a repeated encounter situation with that person, that they're just going to keep encountering them over and over.
It's interesting you said that because also I have talked about that before, whereas most people don't go back to these areas after they have an encounter, right? Unless it's reoccurring where someone's house is there. And I honestly think they're going to get you eventually if you're dealing with that. But whereas most people are either camping or driving through an area, something, they end up just speeding off or running away and never coming back to the area. But I think if they were to come back to that area, that probably wouldn't end well for them.
You know, that's probably true. If I lived in that area and I had repeated dogman encounters and they were snarling and threatening, I would seriously consider moving. Definitely.
Yes, you would think so. So, well, we're gonna do maybe one or two more here, but this one's 2016. A string of bizarre reports began making their way to the public eye. A few people have gone missing under disturbing circumstances, and numerous missing pets have been found obliterated. The local police department blamed it on feral dogs or coyotes, but it was whispered amongst the locals that the culprit was definitely not a known animal, but it was an aggressive bipedal quadrupedal canine like creature with a massive German Shepherd like head that enjoyed terrorizing people. There were even reports of this creature peering into people's windows late at night with its enormous red eyes and putting its human like hand on the window and going as far to even drag its claws or tap the glass repeatedly. Besides the terrifying werewolf, potentially having your pet stolen for breakfast, maybe even yourself stolen for lunch, well, locals describe the place as a laid back type of lifestyle with long, cold winters and a feeling of total isolation, even more isolated and cut off to the general public. Wow, I think I'd be moving pretty quick.
It doesn't sound like a relaxing place to vacation.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like what the heck in a completely remote area like that? And I
The
mean,
moment I saw something like that in the window, that's game over.
yes, it's completely bizarre. And you're in this remote area. How far have we already gone back? And I mean, we're just kicking into 2016. This is
Mm.
a very large file where we never in one episode could touch all these things that are occurring. But that's why I tried to just narrow down to Cold Hollow because Vermont has a ton of stuff that people don't understand. August 2018, a woman is driving to a friend's house one night and has decided to take a back road to further enjoy her commute. As she is singing along to one of her favorite songs, she suddenly sees a 6 to 8 foot tall, muscular, dark brown, human like dog creature with glowing yellow eyes and pointed ears dart across the road a short distance in front of her before disappearing into the dense brush.
Wow, that is incredible.
I know, right? Imagine seeing that. Like, what would your natural reaction really be?
Well, first thing I would do is try to figure out how I misperceived it because you see the combination of a muscular human form with the canine head. It's so incongruous. It's so alien to us. It's right out of Hollywood. It just does not seem real.
Yeah, it's definitely something interesting for sure and would be quite a daunting task for somebody to take on. All right, let's do one more right here. We're going to go to, let me skip a little bit here to a little bit more of a modern time one. All right. How about January 15th, 2022? A couple was hiking on a trail during the early afternoon when out of nowhere they see an enormous, dark gray, human like dog creature with glowing red eyes and pointed ears standing upright on two large bent back legs 20 or 30 yards away, casually watching them. Once being noticed by the pair, the animal began barking and screaming like a woman before casually walking off into the forest and continuously screaming in anger and out of sight.
Perhaps signaling others. Dark gray. I wonder if that would be an indicator of age with that individual.
Yeah, it could be. And I mean, we get a bunch of different reports. I mean, it's not always jet black. I mean, you get the dark grayish kind of smoky gray color sometimes. And yeah, it really could be. I mean, obviously with age or etc. Things are going to change with color, but it's just a whole lot of interestingness because when you look at it scientifically, or what I like to do, you can fit a lot of pieces in, okay, with things we've spoken about before. But then it does get to a point where after filtering out all the people that you think are bums and hoaxers or crazy people or drug users, after you get rid of all that junk and then you figure out, oh, okay, this is a hyena that they saw or potentially a short-faced cave bear that we think is kicking around. Once you get rid of all that stuff, you still have these cases like this where, I mean, what is National Geographic's in 1950 doing writing an article about Cold Hollow, Vermont. Could someone correct me if I'm wrong? I mean, that must be something of relevance for National Geographics to even have cared. I mean, I'm not trying to diss Vermont, but National Geographics, I mean, just look at the magazine. They're in the Amazon and all these crazy places like the Alpines and Mount Everest. So, what caught their attention about Cold Hollow, Vermont? Like, what made them interested in it? Because, I mean, what is so important about Vermont over any of the other places they went to that made them pay attention?
Yeah, generally New England is ignored on in all aspects. When it comes to nature documentaries, or as you were saying, the pure wildness of the area. It's generally, for some reason, people seem to not pay attention to New England.
Yeah, it's interesting, like you said, because I mean, there could be all kinds of epic imagery and such that was taken. But no, I just found that really interesting that a prominent magazine at the time and still a prominent, entertainment aspect. But this is when there wasn't really necessarily, I mean, easily access to TV 1950s. Correct me if I'm wrong. Like, did every home back then have a TV? I don't know. I didn't exist back then, so I don't know. But I do know magazines would have been a big thing back then, where everybody probably could have had access to National Geographics pretty easily.
Oh yeah, National Geographic was the magazine to buy. It really was. I mean, you go to a flea market or tag sale, there'd be piles of National Geographic everywhere. I mean, everyone had that magazine.
So interesting for sure, because now with Nat Geo, they have it all on the TV and everything. But I just remember when I was a kid, all the stacked up magazines too. It's just interesting, like I said, that they came to Cold Hollow, Vermont, sent in people to try to figure out what the heck was going on, and that they'd even heard about these people going missing and seeing these strange creatures. So, again, it just brings another level of questions, but also another level of clarity. And Steve Cook was the first person to say it in his song The Legend. And I love his saying, which is why I've been saying it. Honestly, though, what happens from here? What happens when a legend, the truth outruns the fiction? I mean, as we keep talking about this stuff and more people are added to our science team, again, I'm going to ask that question: what happens?
And there's a public safety issue as well, and it's a very important thing.
No, for sure. It definitely really is. Because, I mean, before we let you go, honestly, though, I don't know if people could really handle anything. I hate to knock shade on people. Everyone can just do their own thing. But the majority of people can't handle things that are outside of just going to work and dealing with their families. I mean, look at the case of War of the Worlds. When it was read, everyone just panicked and it was just entertainment, but yet they thought it was the end of the world. So, if anything like that was ever enunciated, hey, there are massive human-like canines in our parks and huge hominoid-like creatures that are stealing people. I mean, what are people's reaction going to be? Or if they were like, hey, UFOs are real and can come destroy us at any point in time. Or, hey, there's going to be a massive earthquake and California is just going to break off, but we can't really do much for you. Or, hey, this meteorite that's coming, oh man, we're not really sure. We think it's going to take out half of the world, but maybe half of America might be all right. How is anyone going to respond to any of that stuff? They're going to panic for the most part.
Oh yeah, mass hysteria, and we've seen mass hysteria. Remember the toilet paper shortages? We've
Yes,
seen it.
exactly.
We've seen it.
Exactly. So you just unfortunately, you would like to think people keep composure, but I mean, that's why certain people are better at composure than other people. I mean, it's just like in history, unfortunately, during war and times like that, when you had the person telling you, hey, stay put, stay put, stay put. These airplanes are going to be over in a second as artillery's blowing up everywhere. Well, someone panics. I'm not staying here. F that. Runs outside, sniper, boom, gets them. Just some people, unfortunately, when chaos ensues, just panic.
Yeah, yeah. It's a matter of knowing how to handle the panic. Like everyone will feel panic, but some people let it control their behavior. Others don't.
Yes, exactly, which is why, you get the great leaders and why the other people are just like, and just run off. So, but
Right.
I do appreciate you popping in, man, and investing some more of your time here tonight. And we will definitely link up here again soon. And you should probably get ready to rest and get some sleep because I know you got to get up early and start churning what you got to do, man. So,
Oh, thank you, Ken. You've been educating me. It's been a fascinating journey.
Thank you for everyone who once again stopped by tonight for another episode of Midnight Lycanthropy here on Star Fox Radio. If you do enjoy my content, please like, subscribe, and share it. Feed the algorithm. And I will catch you on the next one.